Welcome everyone to CFESA's podcast with the young professionals. Today we are joined by Michael Cooper from Horizon Bradco, Haley Scott from Catering Equipment Support, and Amy Rice from ABDA Designs. Haley and Amy are both from the CEDA Academy, and Mike is with the Young Professionals Committee with CFESA. So today we're going to be in a little bit different of a podcast in a world where hustle tends to overshadow mental and emotional health in the workplace. We're just going to be chatting about why it's so important to put a little bit of a higher emphasis on mental health in the workplace and get that conversation started. So just going to have you each introduce yourselves here quickly. I'll start with Amy. If you could just kind of let us know a little bit about what you do at work and any of your passion for mental health.
Okay. So I'm Amy. I am the operations coordinator here at ABDA Design. So we are a design house split into two sections. So we do interior design and then we do commercial kitchen design as well. So I'm in charge of the everyday running of the office and then everything operational in terms of the projects that go on site. My background is completely different from the hospitality industry. I actually studied psychology and mental health at uni. So it's a really, really big passion of mine.
Awesome. So Mike, if you could go next.
Horizon Bradco, we service mainly in grocery stores. We service all their food equipment, anything that heats up or grinds meat, bakery ovens, kind of you name it, everything but HVAC. That's as far as the company goes. My interest in mental health is I have a lot of skin in the game when it comes to that. I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. And a lot of what we do, to be efficient and be productive, you have to have that right balance of clarity. And when your younger Marines are somewhere else mentally, or maybe they're mentally burnt out with what they're doing, you're not going to have the results you want. And in the higher aspect of things on a high level, that's dangerous. And it can be dangerous in this field too. We're working with high voltages, and it's something that I think gets put on the back burner a lot because you have to make your paycheck. But it's something that companies should look into further and people should take more seriously.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. And Haley?
So I work for Catering Equipment Support. I'm the design and implementation manager. So I work on projects, sales, a bit of everything really. We do the whole full turnkey solutions for kitchens, service, maintenance, installations, kitchen design. We cover it all basically. So I do a little bit of everything at work. My passion is mental health. I've really enjoyed sort of studying different parts of it. I've just done a level 2 introduction to counselling course, which was really, really interesting. I'm on the CEDA Wellbeing Working Group and I'm an ambassador for the Burnt Chef project. So there's a lot of different things I'm doing to try and sort of improve my skills and just learn the most I want to learn about myself, really.
Awesome. I love that. So let's kind of start off with why is mental health such an important topic to you all? I'll just kind of leave that open if anybody wants to jump in.
I don't mind going first. So obviously I mentioned that I studied psychology and mental health at university. But as someone who's experienced mental health firsthand, I think it's something that I'm really passionate in because I know how hard it can be, and how difficult people's lives can become because of suffering with mental health. I think it's like looking after your own mental health is such an important part of self-care, and it's a massive part of personal development as well. And I think if you're not thinking about your mental health like you should be, like it's a massive part of anyone's life.
Absolutely. I do feel exactly the same. It affects everyone. And I feel like, unfortunately, with mental health, sometimes, or a lot of the time, it takes for you to be at rock bottom before you realise you need to figure out where your mental health's at.
Yeah.
I think it's so important that when you are feeling good and you're in a really good headspace, you're maintaining that, so you know at every stage when things are deteriorating, so that the next time you know where things are going wrong. And to be able to check in with yourself, I think, is a tool that everyone should sort of work on.
You have anything to add, Mike?
Just really want to agree with it. Yeah, I myself have had some troubling mental health struggles in the past, and worked through it most of the way with self-medication, and that's the wrong way to go about it. And it really just takes a toll on my family. I have 3 daughters, and my wife, who can be as understanding as possible. And there's some things that you just don't realize, the stress of work, and you bringing that home and kind of taking out your frustrations on your family when you don't mean to. Um, you know, After seeking treatment and trying to go about things the right way, I mean, my wife and I's relationship has gotten tenfold better. Um, I look at every day with my family as a positive thing versus in the past I used to look at it as, okay, next job is I have to take care of them. I have to, act like I'm being nice today or something like that. And those I agree. They're very, very important things that people overlook.
So I guess kind of getting right into it, you've all kind of mentioned, like, you have to be aware of where you are each day. And sometimes it does take until you get to rock bottom to realize you need better. And that can affect your family life, your work life, everything. Sometimes it can even cost you, your job. So, or your family. So any of you like found any ways to like check in with yourself, or is there kind of like a spot you get to where you need to take a break, or are there things you have successfully implemented in your day-to-day life that prevent you from getting to like burnout or overwhelm?
I think for me, I know this is a very personal thing and it's not for everyone, but I do therapy. So I have dipped in and out of it over the past couple of years for different things. So for me, that really helps. And I know that I can tell a difference in myself and how I'm feeling to when I'm not doing it compared to when I am and when I'm feeling good, and when I can recognize how I'm feeling and I know how to deal with it. I think surrounding yourself with like people that can help, a supportive group of friends or family is really important as well. Like a lot of my struggles I wouldn't have got through without my friends or family, and having that support network is really, really important, whether you want it or not at the time.
Definitely. I feel exactly the same about therapy. I wish everyone would go to therapy. I had no idea for me what kind of things would even come up in therapy. I think I went with quite an open mind of anxiety was something I've always really struggled with. And it was kind of like, I feel this way, I'm getting sort of tight chest, I can't think straight. Like the struggle is getting to a point where it's affecting everything, my relationships, my job. Like I hadn't put fuel in my car for 3 years. Like I couldn't even begin to imagine what it was like just to go to a shop and put diesel in my car at the time. And I remember going to the GP and being like, he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I can't do it." And he said, "What do you mean you can't do it?" I said, "I can't put fuel in my car." And I just broke down in tears. And I remember thinking, I'm crying about putting fuel in my car, but it was so much more than that to me at the time. And therapy and just being able to work with your emotions and why that's coming up for you has been absolutely like game changing. I think if you can check in with yourself at a point where you don't even need to know what you're thinking, why you're thinking the things you're thinking, which was the point I was always at. If you can get to the feeling and acknowledge that before you even get to the thought process, I think you can just stop and check in with yourself. is really important.
Yeah, completely agree.
I know personally I'm in therapy as well, and I've loved it. I feel like a while ago it felt like, you don't want to go, you dread it every time, you want to cancel right before, and then once you find like the right person, it's like, oh, I can't wait to stay and talk about either like, some big wins you've had or some things you're struggling with. And the lady I found I really enjoy, she does yoga as well, like through trauma yoga, and she does a lot of like somatic breath work. And so I feel like that's something that has been helpful for me because, you can use breath work anywhere and people might not even like realize you're doing it. But if you're having, anxiety on a plane or, anxiety in the workplace or something, it's something you can kind of easily just take with you and do.
Yeah, I think it's about learning those skills that you can to be able to help in those certain situations. It's a shame though, because especially in the UK, like waiting lists for mental health services are ridiculously long, and then to try and get therapy privately is so expensive. So we're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously our healthcare system is a little bit different here in America, but I think it is still similar where, you have to make multiple phone calls to try to find somebody. And, when you're in a bad place mentally, trying to make a phone call to get help is something that's very like overwhelming too. And it can feel like a little bit even vulnerable making that phone call. And then when you get like denied, it's like, well, I'm just, it's easy to just give up in that moment as well. Have you found anything similar, Mike, or different?
My mental health treatment is still ongoing. It has been for roughly 5 years. Mine is through the VA, so it is definitely a giant pain to get, but it's nice because it's not any out-of-pocket cost for me. Um, when I first got out of the service, it took about 9 months on a waiting list to be able to have a therapist. Um, shortly after that, she got promoted, and then I got on a waiting list for another few months for the next one in line. Um, for me, going to therapy usually leaves me feeling very anxious and, a mix of emotions for the rest of the day because I feel like I got some stuff off my chest and then I don't know how to feel about that, but I also have work to do, so I don't have time to, reflect on that yet. I think that for me personally, and I would say for some of my friends, it's good to just look at yourself and say, or if you're driving and someone cuts you off and you have a road rage, in your car and you're yelling, you got to stop and think, why am I actually mad? There's nothing that wasn't important. And it can either be something that ruins your day or you can choose for it not to. And I think that's the biggest thing that treatment has shown me is that I can let something ruin my day, or I can think about it for a minute and say, that's not a big deal. I'm not going to stress about the things I can't control.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So I think sometimes there's a little bit still of a stigma around mental health, and especially in the workplace. Is there one specific like stigma that really like bothers you or that you wish you could break?
Yeah, I think mental health has always been such a taboo subject for some unknown reason, but I think one of the main ones for me, and I think this is a big one for everyone really, but men and mental health is such a massive stigma. It's like there's this whole thinking that men can't suffer with mental health, or men can't have emotions, or men can't like process things the same way that women do. And I think as a society, we need to massively come away from that. Men can feel things deeper than women sometimes. Like it's all on an individual basis. It shouldn't be down to gender.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a really, really important one. And then another one for me, I thought was how do I word it? When people are talking, it's when if you're talking because you're struggling with your mental health, it's the idea of being the listener that you have to fix the problem. I think that if society-wise we could all wrap our heads around the idea that most of the time the people talking do not actually need you to fix their problem, they just need to hear you. And if we could take away the judgment from that and make it all an open conversation, or even just to do nothing, sometimes just talking and saying exactly what you're feeling in that moment is enough to be able to let it go. I think that's something that I've realized with therapy, particularly, is I just needed to say it. I didn't actually need the problem to be fixed whatsoever, and the problem is gone. And I think, like Mike said, it's control. A lot of mental health, I find, comes down to control, lack of control. So yeah, I wish we could all just accept that we don't need to fix people. Sometimes we just need to listen to people.
I think sometimes as well, it's not even just about like talking about it. I read something somewhere and it said that if you're struggling, spending 7 minutes with a friend or a loved one or just someone that you feel comfortable with can actually boost your mood like so much. And I think like 7 minutes, like that's not a lot of time really, just to make you feel better about yourself. And I think that could be paramount to everyone really.
Absolutely. If you think how quick we all are just to pick up our phones and try and have some form of connection, if we were all present with the people that we were with, that could change everything as well.
Yeah. I do think social media has a lot to answer for in terms of mental health as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, is there any stigma that you want to break?
So we all kind of brought up the stigma of men's mental health. Being in the Marine Corps, your mental health is put on the back burner 99% of the time. We've had people who have had attempted suicides that are expected to show up at work the next day and, hey, nobody cares about your problems. It's your problem right now. You need this. You need to do this. You need to do that. And that's kind of the general push across many industries, not just military, is, hey, we need you to work. We don't need you to sulk about things that make you sad. We need you to work. And most fathers that I know, including my own, is, just keep your head down and keep yourself so busy that you don't have time to think about it, is usually the solution. And that itself is the stigma that I would absolutely love for people to break. It's not the solution. That's how you bottle it up until you have one day, a small issue that cascades into, dire consequences. I've had several friends commit suicide in the past, and many of them have joked about it, with me in conversation, and you don't think anything of it because it seems to be a common topic amongst men where you can be joking about anything and say, oh, well, wouldn't that be nice if that happened, and it would generally be a joke about something bad happening. And I think that's generally a man's way of kind of venting. We'll do it through joking. And what I've started to do is take those things more seriously, um, and make the small changes and reach out to people. I'm not the best at reaching out to friends that I haven't talked to in years. Um, but I still have friends that reach out every now and then I haven't talked to in, 10 years. And, hey, how are you? How are you doing? And what I've noticed is it makes my day. It makes my day. It brings back some fun memories, and little things like that are what I think can really break these stigmas. Is reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in 8 years, because maybe you moved away or different jobs or went different directions. Talk to somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time and see how they're doing. And I think if everybody did that a little bit more, that we might be able to work through some of these problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all the points with those. And I think too, Mike, with what you said is reaching out to people. And I think sometimes when people ask how you're doing, it's sometimes just like a natural thing in conversation, but sometimes I think it's hard to be completely vulnerable with how you're doing. And you're like, well, they don't actually want to know how I'm doing. So you just kind of like move on. So I think, knowing who you can talk to about how you're actually doing and who maybe just to be surface level because you don't want to get into it with them. I mean, I know for myself too, one of the not really stigmas, I guess, but one thing about mental health that frustrates me is like toxic positivity. I generally try to be a pretty positive person, but I hate when you're going through your lowest low and people just want to say, well, look at the bright side or look at this. And it's like, sometimes life is just crap. Like sometimes that's how it is. It's not a positive spin you can put on it. Will it be better in the future? Sure, it definitely could be. And it is important to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel when you're in a dark spot and know that it can get better. But I know personally when my mom was sick and she had a terminal illness and people would be like, well, like it could be worse or it could be this. And I'm like, I mean, at this point, like sometimes it's like, I know it could be worse. She could be like dying tomorrow. But when somebody has a terminal illness, sometimes there's nothing great about it. Like you can enjoy the time you have with them. But to have been made to feel like I couldn't just be sad or be like, this really freaking sucks, sometimes was very frustrating. So I don't like toxic positivity or being told to be more positive.
Yeah.
That I don't like.
I completely
agree.
I resonate with that situation as well. My mum has a terminal illness, and hearing people say, well, it could be worse, I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not a fun thing to go through. It's definitely something you have to prioritize your mental health as like, a caretaker system. But yeah, I just sometimes wanted to scream and be like, I don't want to be positive. So I'm going to switch a little bit more. We've been talking pretty heavy stuff, and this is just generally a heavy topic. But what is like something that you think in a work environment employers could do to be a little bit more supportive of a culture in the company that supports mental health?
Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was gonna say, I think that the biggest contribution that employers can make is actually just have good planning. I mean, nothing puts a bigger obstacle in your way than having your day planned out and then things change because this person forgot to tell this person something, and then that snowball effect of people dropping the ball really tends to screw up days, and then it puts a bind on your home life as well. Hey, I thought I was going to come home at 5, but actually it's 9 o'clock tonight. I'm sorry, and it may be later, or I may not be home tonight now. And it seems like it can be prevented with just good planning and communication.
Definitely.
I'll just add real quick, as somebody who loves a schedule and loves a plan, there's nothing that frustrates me more than a wrench being thrown into that schedule or the plan last minute. So yes, it doesn't generally happen with my job the way my schedule is, but if anybody wants to come in and throw a wrench in my schedule, I'm not a happy person.
Completely agree. I think just being kind in general is a massive one as well. Like I think creating a team that obviously I know him, like there's only 13 of us here, so it's quite easy to become quite close as a team. So I do understand that it's probably bigger and it's harder in bigger companies, but I think just having that positive work environment and everyone being kind to each other is just something really simple that everyone can do that could help promote a supportive environment and a comfortable environment.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially to add on that from like a managerial point of view is to lead by example. I think it's so easy to get stressed out and then to kind of just everything becomes, and to be super busy all the time. And I do think that kind of thing rolls downhill. I think if you have people who are higher up within companies, that they might be stressed. We all get stressed, but they still take their breaks and they're making a conscious effort to try and calm themselves down. I think a lot of people appreciate that because then you're not having to deal with other people's emotions. I think especially here with this company is similar to you, Amy. There's 4 of us in the office on the day-to-day basis. If someone's having a bad mood, you're going to feel it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't take much for moods to shift. So I think being sort of self-awareness is sort of being able to check in with your own emotions means that you don't have to rely on other people to kind of have to check where you're at, if that makes sense. It's kind of looking after yourself as number one and then managing to sort of check in with everybody else. But I think definitely from sort of a stress point of view, as much of that can be managed and contained, that you don't get the snowball effect of, well, now all 4 of us are stressed out because, this deadline's shifted.
I do think there's external services that can help as well. Like as a team, we use something called Vitality, and it's like you can track your fitness on there. You can earn points and then you get rewarded. There's like a mental health helpline. So if someone wasn't comfortable with talking to someone in the same company, you could speak to someone external. Because I know that obviously, especially with smaller companies, it can all feel a bit tight knit and a bit like, oh, if I tell you that, is someone else. Do you know what I mean? So I think having someone external is is something that a lot of people could do.
That's awesome. So is that like a kind of like an employee benefit that your company offers?
Yeah, so it's a health service. You get private health insurance through there. You can get a doctor's appointment within 24 hours, which is unheard of in the UK sometimes. So you can also, like I said, track your fitness. So I have an Apple Watch, so I link my Apple Watch to the Vitality app. So every time I go for a walk or something, it racks up points. And then at the end of the month, you get a certain amount of points and you get different rewards. Like you could get free cinema tickets or like a free coffee or something like that. And then, they have external helplines as well. So you can access therapy through them. You can, speak to like an employee mental health helpline. It's just literally a case of picking up the phone. And I know obviously we said that sometimes that's not easy for someone going through mental health, but sometimes it's easier than talking to someone within a team.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really cool. I like that. I recently started at the end of last year at a new gym, and they have their own app which tracks your calorie burn and everything like that, and then every 90 days you accrue based on how many calories you burn gift cards to buy workout shirt or something from them. And I have never been more motivated than it's feeding my shopping addiction a little bit. I need $10 more.
It feels validated.
So are there any effective strategies you've learned to kind of manage your mental health while in the workplace?
As a company, we do monthly what we call cuppa and a catch-up sessions. So once a month we all get together, normally on a Monday morning, and we just get some breakfast. We all have like a cup of tea or a coffee together, and we just chat about our weekends or chat about like plans that we have coming up or like something like that. We also do in the winter months wellbeing walks as well. So we all get out, go for about an hour's walk. We always end up at the pub, but you know, that's a bit of a social thing, so that's all right. So yeah, we try and make sure that we're doing that once a month, which I've found really has helped. Like it's brought the team a lot closer, which is lovely.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's something Cedar Wellbeing have also sort of started to do with coffee and a chat morning. So that was really successful in just bringing together conversation, sort of having people talk, sort of by doing it via social media, for instance. You don't all have to be in the same place to be on the same kind of level, and to be able to sort of just have any kind of conversation regarding mental health is such a step in the right direction. So I feel like, yeah, ABDA are fantastic with that in terms of actually advocating mental health. I think the industry is changing, definitely. It's going to take time to get other people on board. Yeah, but it's exciting. I do feel like there's definitely a shift there, and with more and more sort of young people coming into the industry who are more sort of advocates for mental health and wanting to feel good about themselves and work. I think there's no time like the present to kind of get that into motion.
I think the Cedar Wellbeing Group will be such a turning point for that, because if we can, like you said, with so many more young people coming into the industry, if we can get the Cedar Academy involved in mental health and wellbeing days and things like that, I think that's a way that we can then like take that to our companies and we can implement those things. So I think the Wellbeing Group is going to be so paramount to our industry.
It's exciting.
Awesome. So Haley, real quick, are there going to be more like the coffee and chats with CETA coming soon?
Yeah, so the coffee and chat, I think we sort of talked about that event being sort of 6 monthly, but hopefully more and more people can kind of do it on their own at the same time. So we don't need to do an event like that consistently. Hopefully that will sort of gain momentum on its own. But there are sort of events being planned around conference that we're looking at doing a few initiatives to kind of bring people together. I think especially for conferences, there's such a difference between being in a work environment and seeing people constantly on a professional level, and, you know, before you know it, it's the awards and there's quite a lot of alcohol involved. So to be able to have a wellbeing walk potentially the next day to get people up and motivated, and it should just bring people together, and especially for people that aren't particularly into the drinking scene. I think for me personally, I've had to step away from that for my own kind of mental health, and I haven't had a drink since New Year's Eve, so I won't be drinking at conference. I think that's something that I need to be done with. So I'm, for the first time ever, going to wake up without a hangover, which is amazing. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to kind of be able to still socialize in them kind of environments where there'll be a lot of alcohol involved, and then still feel good about a connection is something I'm quite excited for. Yeah, so there's definitely things coming up, and when we find out a bit more sort of details and we sort of think about things, we'll definitely let you guys know. It's exciting. Definitely.
Yeah, that is exciting. I look forward to hearing more about it and seeing you at a conference. So I think that's also, I really liked it when I saw that, because I think it's also kind of getting the word out there on social media a little bit more too, just to, again, try to like break the stigma of mental health and talk about it in a professional setting. Mike, so you're in a little bit of a different position. You're a tech, you're on the road a lot, so you're not really in an office setting. So when you're having like a really frustrating day with work, have you found any ways to kind of make it better, or?
So basically one or two options. I can call my boss, Kevin, and say, hey, Kev, I'm not having a great day today, and I think it's going to affect my product of work. So I think I'm going to just go home. I have the best boss ever, so I haven't had to do that to him yet, but I know that he would say, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow," or "I'll talk to you tomorrow." Um, and that's the case generally with most of the technicians. We work with high voltage and some dangerous stuff from time to time. So if your head's not in it, they they really have no excuse to make you stay. You can say, "I need to go home today. I'm not feeling it." And I've had those days in the past. I think that for most of the technicians, we have the time to drive to, say, your second job and say, "I'm going to sit in the truck for 10, 15 minutes, cool off, maybe just people watch for a little bit and relax, and kind of get myself in the right kind of mood to get to work because we don't interact with our coworkers as much as we interact with the customers. And customer experience is, a big part of our job. Um, you don't want to show up to a customer that's like, "Oh, the last time he was here, he was yelling about this or he was angry about something." So I don't want to talk to him and tell him what's wrong with this thing. He'll just have to figure it out. Well, now what you've done is made your job harder the next time you go back. Um, so customer experience is everything with what we're doing.
All right. Well, we will move past that for now. Let's see if he can get back on. I'm gonna mute him just in case he comes back in. I feel like, just to follow up with what he was talking about a little bit, it's nice to just at least know that you have the option to have an out and just go home for the day. I think even if you're not going to do it, sometimes it takes a little bit of the stress or the pressure off just to know that you do have that option and that you don't have to just push through when you're not feeling it.
I think that's a really nice idea. I think, especially as someone who works in an office, you sort of forget about how technicians who are by themselves most of the day would potentially deal with things like that. So it's nice to hear it from a different perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
We're gonna try to wrap it up here. We could probably chat on this all day. But I have kind of another question. So are there any future trends that you see in the workplace with kind of mental health and the stigma around it as more companies are starting to prioritize wellness in the workplace?
I think in future there's going to be a bigger focus on it in general. I think hybrid working has sort of helped with things like mental health. Obviously, I know that a lot of that came from COVID, but I think that it really helps in terms of someone's mental health. Like if you're not feeling yourself or if you're not feeling up to being in a social environment, having that flexibility to work from home and be in your own space and deal with it in the way that you want and need to deal with it. I think that's really important. I think something that we do here is what we call creative days. So everyone gets out of the office for a day. And I think something along those lines in terms of well-being days would be something that a lot of companies pick up on. So maybe you have a day or two in the bank, and if you're not feeling up to it and if you're not feeling 100%, you can just sort of say, "Look, I'm really sorry, but I need some time by myself and I need to work on a few things. Can I have the day?" If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the whole work as an activity, not a location. I think that's such a mentality shift as well. Like for me, I'm a mum of two, and the guilt I felt with having to try and juggle my hours with childcare, because childcare is extortionate. So I'm so lucky to be able to work where I work and be like, look, for example, it's Easter holidays. Can I work these hours? And at first you feel so guilty of being and it's a pressure I found that I was putting on myself. It wasn't a pressure from anyone else. It was just well, I'm not at work, so how could I possibly have this benefit of not being at work but be working? Because it feels like such a perk. And like you said, Amy, with COVID changed everything. Because all of a sudden, we've had laptops for years.
Yeah.
It's okay to pick your laptop up, and for me, it's knowing that I can put my girls to bed and then get on the laptop and finish off designs or anything, taking that pressure away from, it needs to be 8 till 4, you need to be in the office. Do I really? Why?
Individuals work so differently as well. Like for me, I'm a night owl, so I do my best work late at night, whereas someone else who's a morning person, that would benefit them to be in the office or be on the road earlier. But for me, I like to work at night. So yeah, I think it's nice to have that flexibility. I also think work-life balance is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. You spend so much time working, and that is something that my boss says, is that we work to live, we don't live to work. I was trying to get it around the right way. That is the right way. It's so true. I think we as people get so caught up in having to feel fulfilled and like you need this crazy career to have everything you want out of life. And for me personally, it took for me to be at my worst. I've had the most money I think I'd ever had, and it didn't mean anything. It meant I could afford therapy. That was about all the benefit it was. And I know that money is a huge stress for a lot of people, and it has been for me. I've definitely struggled. But if you can find the balance between your career and work and your life, it's so fulfilling. I think peace is so underrated. People choose chaos, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, work is something that we go to every day. And for some people that are really lucky, like me, I love my job and I really love going to work. So it makes it so much better. But at the end of the day, the majority of people are replaceable at their job. And I think it's important for everybody to understand, like, my coworkers and I, we all come here and we work as a team together to get a job done. But we're all individual people, humans that have things that come up, whether it be, parent with terminal illness, it kind of takes over your life for a little bit. You have children, you have a new child, it's like a big change in your life, or, your child's going through something and you have to be there for them or whatever it is. And everybody's going to have their stuff that comes up at different times. I think it's a little bit unrealistic to expect it to not affect your productivity or how you're going to be at work. It shouldn't be a permanent thing. And when there's things that come up, you have to learn to work around it. I think I wish it was like a little bit more understood in general, not in my job, but like that. People are humans. They're going to have things that come up and that are going to cloud their life and their productivity for a little bit. And that's okay. And, you work together and you find ways around it until you can get back to, your top peak production. So I just want to swing back here before we close a little bit more on CEDA well-being and the Burnt Chef Project. So the first time I ever heard about the Burnt Chef Project was at the CEDA conference last June.
Okay.
And I know that CEDA works really closely with them. So Amy and Haley, if you could just kind of chat a little bit more about the CEDA well-being group, maybe why or how it started, what the purpose is, and then a little bit about the Burnt Chef Project as well.
Yeah, so the CEDA Wellbeing Group is a working group. It's basically designed to help break down the stigma that surrounds mental health by bringing sort of initiatives and events together. I think CEDA and the whole industry really felt that there wasn't anything that was kind of catering equipment specific. The Burnt Chef Project is an incredible resource for hospitality as a whole. The resources that they have with therapy, e-learning, workshops, posters, they are so established at what they do. For CEDA to be an associate member with the Burnt Chef Project, it made so much sense for CEDA to steer it down the route of working with the Burnt Chef project. The Wellbeing Working Group essentially kind of takes a lot of knowledge and ideas and expertise of the Burnt Chef project, and hopefully we get to steer it in a way that makes it more specific to our industry. I think that there's quite a few people out there that feel like we don't have the same struggles as others within the hospitality industry, which we don't, but at the same time, we are all human. We are all suffering some kind of mental health issues at some point. I think the Burnt Chef project said 4 out of 5 of us will suffer a mental health issue at some point in their life. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's fantastic and exciting to be able to work alongside the Burnt Chef project, but also to have our own ideas with the academy, like Amy said, to be able to take ideas to the academy, hopefully get a lot of ideas out of the academy. Young people are going to be a huge driving force for mental health across the entire industry.
Awesome. So Michael messaged me. He had to cut out. He had a work emergency that he had to attend to. So sometimes that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you guys want to add in last minute that we didn't get to about mental health, or anything that you're really passionate about, or just closing remarks at all?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I don't think so. I think you covered everything, really. It's a privilege to be here, to be chatting to you as always. It's
absolutely
amazing to be able to talk about mental health in such an open way. I think it's so exciting to be able to take these steps. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. I think it's so important to have these conversations and to continue having these conversations and to get that knowledge and education out to people. So
yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I think kind of one of my big takeaways is, you know, a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves that contributes negatively to our mental health. And we feel a certain pressure to act or behave a certain way, or maybe neglect our mental health for the sake of work and looking and seeming professional, when you know, maybe there's others that could learn from us from just being vulnerable, like, you know, we have been today, and talking about it, and just not putting too much pressure on yourself that's not needed. So I appreciate you guys so much for coming on here and being so vulnerable and sharing insights and tips and tricks that you've learned along the way. Just to wrap up, I challenge our listeners to consider how being more intentional with your mental health is going to affect you and those around you, and what you can add into your daily job to make it better and just open up the conversations. And I look forward to the next CEDA Wellbeing Coffee and Chat. And I'll talk to you ladies soon. Thank you.
thank you.